A 30% annual return isn't achieved by being smarter than everyone else. It's achieved by avoiding obvious mistakes longer than most people can stay patient. Let's clear something up immediately. If you are chasing a 30% return by searching for tips, shortcuts, or excitement, you are already moving in the wrong direction. High returns don't come from activity. They come from judgment. Most people fail because they try to do too much. They trade too often. They react too quickly. They confuse intelligence with motion. The first rule is simple. Don't lose money in stupid ways. Avoid leverage you don't need. Avoid businesses you don't understand. Avoid people selling certainty. A large part of exceptional returns comes from not doing what everyone else is doing. The second rule is concentration, but only when the odds are clearly in your favor. Diversification protects against ignorance. Concentration rewards understanding. If you truly understand something, the business, the incentives, the risks, you don't need 20 ideas. You need a few good ones and the patience to sit still. Third, let time do the heavy lifting. Compounding doesn't need constant help. It needs consistency and the absence of interruption. Most people sabotage compounding by checking results too often and changing plans too early. They sell what's working and keep what's familiar. They optimize for comfort instead of logic. Fourth, temperament matters more than intellect. You don't need to be brilliant. You need to be calm when others are emotional and inactive when others are reckless. Markets reward people who can endure boredom, uncertainty, and temporary underperformance. Fifth, keep expenses and friction low. Every unnecessary fee, tax, or impulsive decision works against you every single year. Reducing stupidity often produces better returns than chasing brilliance. Finally, understand this. A 30% return is rarely smooth, predictable, or frequent. It comes in bursts, separated by long periods of doing nothing. Those who achieve it aren't constantly winning. They are simply prepared when the rare, obvious opportunity appears, and disciplined enough to act decisively. Do fewer things. Do them better. Avoid obvious mistakes. Be patient longer than others. That's how uncommon results are quietly built.
Most people approach investing in money by asking the wrong question. They ask how to make more, faster, or smarter. A better question is how to avoid losing in obvious, preventable ways. High returns mean nothing if they are followed by a blow-up. In finance, survival comes first. Staying in the game matters more than swinging for brilliance. Stupidity in money is rarely subtle. It usually shows up as excessive debt, leverage without necessity, blind trust in forecasts, or investments that cannot be explained simply. These mistakes don't happen because people lack information. They happen because emotion overrides judgment. Greed whispers that this time is different. Fear pushes action when patience would have been cheaper. Avoiding these traps doesn't require genius, only discipline. One of the most common forms of stupidity is confusing activity with progress. Frequent trading, constant tweaking, and chasing what's popular feel productive, but they usually add friction and cost. Each decision introduces the possibility of error. By reducing the number of decisions, you reduce the number of mistakes. Doing nothing, when nothing intelligent presents itself, is often the most profitable move. Another error is misunderstanding risk. People think risk means volatility, but real risk is permanent loss. Temporary declines are uncomfortable but survivable. Leverage, concentration without understanding, and dependence on favorable conditions create situations where a single bad outcome can wipe you out. Avoiding these setups protects your ability to compound over time. There is also stupidity in ignoring incentives. Many products are designed to benefit the seller, not the buyer. High fees, complex structures, and promised certainty are warning signs. If something sounds too polished or too easy, it usually is. Simplicity is often safer because it leaves less room for hidden costs and misunderstandings. Avoiding stupidity also means respecting what you don't know. Overconfidence leads people into areas where expertise is assumed but not earned. Investing in businesses you don't understand, technologies you can't explain, or strategies you can't stick with during stress is dangerous. A small circle of competence beats a large circle of confusion. Chasing high returns too early often damages long-term potential. People take risks they cannot afford because they focus on upside and ignore consequences. When losses occur, they are forced to sell at the wrong time or abandon sound principles. Avoiding stupidity preserves optionality. It allows you to wait for situations where the odds are clearly favorable. The irony is that by avoiding big mistakes, your average results improve dramatically. Compounding works best when it isn't interrupted. Large drawdowns require large gains just to recover. Preventing those drawdowns often produces better outcomes than trying to maximize returns every year. High returns are the result of good judgment applied consistently over time, not clever tricks. By first eliminating behaviors that guarantee failure, you give yourself the chance to benefit from opportunities when they arise. Avoid stupidity, stay solvent, and remain patient. That simple approach quietly outperforms most attempts at brilliance. Activity is often mistaken for progress because it looks productive. Decisions are being made, actions are being taken, and effort is visible. But in investing and in life, more movement does not automatically mean better results. In many cases, excessive activity is a sign of poor judgment, not superior insight. The ability to decide when not to act is often far more valuable than the ability to act quickly. Judgment begins with understanding what matters and what does not. Most situations do not require action. Opportunities worth pursuing are rare, and pretending otherwise leads to wasted time, higher costs, and unnecessary risk. People who act constantly are usually responding to noise, market fluctuations, opinions, headlines, or short-term results, rather than meaningful changes in underlying value. Judgment filters out this noise and focuses attention on what actually influences outcomes. Good judgment also involves recognizing limits. No one has perfect information, and pretending to do so leads to overconfidence. Activity often masks uncertainty. Making frequent decisions creates the illusion of control, but it doesn't reduce risk. In fact, it usually increases it. Each new action introduces another chance to be wrong. Judgment accepts uncertainty and works around it by waiting for situations where the margin for error is large. One of the biggest costs of activity is friction. Trading fees, taxes, and emotional stress quietly erode returns. These costs compound negatively over time. Someone with average intelligence and good judgment who acts sparingly will often outperform a highly intelligent person who cannot sit still. Fewer decisions, when they are well chosen, beat many decisions made under pressure. Judgment also shows up in patience. Most outcomes worth having take time. Businesses need years to mature. Skills require repetition, and investments compound slowly before they accelerate. Activity interrupts this process. People sell too early, switch strategies too often, and abandon sound ideas before they have a chance to work. Judgment allows you to stay with good decisions long enough for their benefits to appear. There is also an emotional component. Activity is often driven by discomfort. Doing something feels better than waiting, especially during uncertainty or boredom. But emotional relief is not the same as rational improvement. Judgment creates distance between feeling and action. It allows time for emotions to settle and facts to become clearer before decisions are made. In markets, the best opportunities usually appear when activity is uncomfortable. When prices are falling, confidence is low, or opinions are divided. Those moments require calm evaluation, not frantic movement. Judgment recognizes when conditions are favorable and acts decisively, but only then. Outside those moments, restraint is a form of discipline, not weakness. Over time, judgment compounds just like capital. Each good decision builds confidence in the process, not in luck. Each avoided mistake preserves resources and optionality. Activity, by contrast, often resets progress, forcing recovery instead of growth. In the end, results are driven less by how much you do and more by how well you choose. Judgment determines where effort is applied and where it is withheld. When judgment leads and activity follows, outcomes improve. When activity leads and judgment trails behind, effort is wasted. Quiet, thoughtful decisions, made at the right time and left alone, consistently outperform constant motion. Concentration is often misunderstood as recklessness, but when it is built on real understanding, it becomes a powerful advantage. Spreading effort or capital thinly can protect against ignorance, but it also limits the impact of insight. When you truly understand something, its economics, its risks, its incentives, concentration allows that understanding to matter. Real understanding is rare because it requires time, study, and patience. It means knowing not just how something works in good conditions, but how it behaves under stress. It means being able to explain why a result should occur, not just hoping it will. Most people confuse familiarity with understanding. They recognize names, trends, or narratives and assume that knowledge. Concentration punishes that mistake. Only genuine understanding survives when outcomes turn unfavorable. When understanding is shallow, diversification is a form of self-defense. It limits damage from errors. But when understanding is deep, excessive diversification can dilute returns. It spreads attention across too many variables, increasing complexity and reducing conviction. Concentration, applied carefully, simplifies decision-making. Fewer positions mean more focus, better monitoring, and clearer reasoning. The key word is carefully. Concentration without understanding is gambling. It amplifies mistakes just as effectively as it amplifies insight. That's why discipline matters. Concentrated positions should be built only where the margin of safety is large and the downside is survivable. Knowing what can go wrong is as important as knowing what can go right. Concentration also demands emotional strength. When you focus on a few well-understood ideas, you feel their fluctuations more intensely. Prices move, opinions shift, and doubt appears. Without understanding, those swings cause panic. With understanding, they become noise. The ability to hold steady comes from knowing why you made the decision in the first place. Another advantage of concentration is learning. When you focus deeply on a limited number of areas, feedback becomes clearer. You see cause and effect more directly. That improves judgment over time. Broad exposure often produces shallow lessons. Focused exposure produces insight. Insight, when combined with patience, compounds. Concentration also aligns incentives. When you have meaningful exposure to a small number of decisions, you care more about quality. You think longer, research deeper, and act more deliberately. Scattered attention encourages casual thinking. Focus demands seriousness. Many great outcomes come not from having many good ideas, but from acting strongly on a few exceptional ones. Opportunities with clear advantages do not appear often. When they do, spreading yourself thin out of habit can be costly. Concentration allows you to fully benefit from rare clarity. This approach does not require constant action. In fact, it often results in long periods of inactivity. Waiting for situations where understanding is high and risk is manageable takes patience. Most of the time, doing nothing is the correct choice. In the end, concentration rewards those who know what they are doing and punishes those who don't. It magnifies reality. For those willing to do the work to understand deeply, it turns insight into impact. For everyone else, restraint is wiser. Compounding is often described as a mathematical concept, but in practice it is a behavioral one. The math is simple. The difficulty lies in not interfering with it. Compounding works best when it is allowed to operate without constant adjustment, interruption, or emotional reaction. Most people understand compounding in theory and defeat it in practice. In the early stages, compounding feels disappointing. Progress is slow and often invisible. Results don't match effort, which creates the temptation to change direction. People abandon good plans because early returns look small or uneven. What they miss is that compounding is not linear. Its power shows up later, after patience has already been tested. Interference is the enemy. Frequent buying and selling reset the compounding process by introducing taxes, fees, and poor timing. Every unnecessary change reduces the base on which growth occurs. Even small frictions repeated often enough cause large damage over time. Doing nothing, when the underlying decision remains sound, is often the most productive choice. Another way compounding is interrupted is through emotional reactions. Fear during downturns and excitement during upswings both lead to bad decisions. Selling after declines locks and losses. Chasing performance after gains often results in buying high. Compounding requires enduring periods that feel uncomfortable. Those who cannot tolerate temporary pain never reach the stage where compounding accelerates. Time is the essential ingredient, and time only works when it is uninterrupted. Switching strategies, changing goals, or constantly optimizing for recent results breaks continuity. Consistency matters more than precision. A good plan followed steadily outperforms a perfect plan followed briefly. Compounding also applies beyond money. Skills improve when practiced consistently over years. Relationships strengthen through regular care. Reputation builds through repeated reliability. In all cases, interference, starting and stopping, changing direction too often, slows growth. The principle is the same. Small improvements, left alone, accumulate into something meaningful. One reason people struggle to leave compounding alone is boredom. There is little to do once the plan is in place. Activity feels useful, even when it isn't. But compounding rewards restraint. It favors those who can resist the urge to tinker for the sake of feeling productive. Another challenge is comparison. Watching others appear to make faster progress can create doubt. But compounding rarely looks impressive in the short term. Its advantage shows up when others stall, reverse, or reset. Quiet progress eventually becomes obvious progress. Leaving compounding alone does not mean ignoring reality. It means distinguishing between temporary noise and fundamental change. If the underlying assumptions remain valid, patience is rational. If they are broken, adjustment is necessary. Judgment determines the difference. Activity without judgment is interference. In the end, compounding is not accelerated by intelligence or effort. It is accelerated by time and protected by discipline. Those who respect it stay the course and avoid unnecessary disruption benefit from a force that grows stronger the longer it is left undisturbed. Intelligence is useful, but it is rarely decisive. In investing, business, and life, temperament often matters far more. Many intelligent people struggle not because they lack knowledge, but because they cannot control their reactions. They overthink, overreact, and act at the wrong time. Meanwhile, people with average intelligence but steady temperament quietly outperform by making fewer, better timed mistakes. Temperament governs how you behave under stress, uncertainty, boredom, and temptation. These conditions appear constantly, especially when money is involved. Markets fluctuate, outcomes are delayed, and feedback is imperfect. Intelligence helps you analyze situations, but temperament determines whether you can stick with a good decision when it becomes uncomfortable. One of the most valuable temperamental traits is emotional stability. Panic during declines and excitement during rallies are equally destructive. Fear pushes people to sell when prices are low. Greed pushes them to buy when prices are high. Both reactions feel justified in the moment. Only a steady temperament can resist them. The ability to remain calm when others are emotional is a lasting advantage. Another important trait is patience. Intelligent people often feel compelled to act because they see possibilities everywhere. This leads to overtrading and constant strategy changes. A patient temperament accepts that most opportunities are not worth pursuing. It waits for situations where the odds are clearly favorable. Waiting is not a lack of intelligence. It is a disciplined application of it. Temperament also influences humility. Intelligence can create overconfidence. People assume they are smarter than the system or immune to basic risks. A sound temperament respects uncertainty and acknowledges limits. It avoids situations where being wrong is catastrophic. This humility preserves capital and keeps you in the game long enough for good decisions to compound. Boredom tolerance is another overlooked factor. Successful strategies often involve long periods of inactivity. There is little excitement in holding a position, saving consistently, or refining a skill. Intelligent people may become restless and abandon sensible approaches for stimulation. Those with the right temperament can endure boredom without sabotaging themselves. Temperament affects how people respond to mistakes. Intelligent individuals may rationalize errors or double down to protect their ego. A healthier temperament admits mistakes quickly, learns from them, and moves on. This adaptability prevents small errors from becoming permanent damage. Over time, the advantages of temperament compound. Fewer emotional decisions lead to fewer costly mistakes. Consistency replaces brilliance as the driver of results. Calm, patient behavior allows time and compounding to work uninterrupted. In the end, intelligence determines what you know. Temperament determines what you do with that knowledge. Under real-world conditions, uncertainty, pressure, and delayed rewards, temperament decides outcomes. That is why steady, disciplined people often achieve better long-term results than those who are simply smarter. Great returns are rarely the result of constant action. They come from a balance that most people struggle to maintain. Long periods of patience combined with brief moments of decisive action. The patience keeps you out of trouble. The decisiveness allows you to fully benefit when the right opportunity appears. Both are necessary, and neither works well without the other. Patience means waiting without forcing outcomes. It means accepting that good opportunities are scarce, and that doing nothing is often the correct choice. Most of the time, prices are fair, information is incomplete, or risks outweigh rewards. Acting during these periods usually adds cost without improving results. Patience protects capital, attention, and emotional energy. Decisive action is different from constant activity. It occurs only when conditions align clearly in your favor. The opportunity is understandable, the downside is manageable, and the odds are attractive. At these moments, hesitation is costly. Small, cautious moves fail to capture the advantage. Decisiveness turns preparation into results. The challenge is emotional. Patience feels uncomfortable because it looks like inactivity. Decisive action feels risky because it concentrates exposure. Most people resolve this tension by doing the opposite of what works. They act too often in mediocre situations and hesitate when the situation is truly favorable. This pattern leads to average or poor outcomes. Patience gives you perspective. It allows you to observe without pressure and to learn without committing. Over time, patterns become clearer. You gain insight into what matters and what does not. This preparation makes decisive action possible. Without patience, decisiveness becomes impulsiveness. Without decisiveness, patience becomes passivity. Another benefit of patience is that it filters out competition. Many people cannot wait. They need constant feedback and stimulation. By simply being willing to wait longer than others, you face less competition when opportunities finally appear. Decisive action then has a greater impact because fewer people are acting at the same time. Decisiveness also signals conviction. It reflects understanding and confidence grounded in preparation. When you act decisively, you commit fully and avoid the regret that comes from half measures. Half decisions often produce half results in lingering doubt. Clear action simplifies outcomes and learning. There is also a compounding effect. Patient periods protect your base. Decisive moments increase it meaningfully. Repeating this pattern over time creates strong results without excessive risk. Losses are limited because patience avoids bad situations. Gains are meaningful because decisiveness captures favorable ones. This approach requires discipline. You must resist the urge to act out of boredom or fear. You must also resist the urge to delay when logic supports action. Both mistakes are driven by emotion rather than judgment. In the end, great returns do not come from being busy or brilliant every day. They come from knowing when to wait and when to act. Patience sets the stage. Decisive action delivers the result. Together, they create an approach that is both resilient and effective over time.